Lewis Hamilton wants the FIA to implement a regulation that limits when F1 teams may begin development on their next car to prevent one team from maintaining a significant lead, like Red Bull, who has won all 8 races so far in 2023. Could we ever see this happen? Or is this just a dig to Max Verstappen and Red Bull to put them off their game? Or could this be another trick to make the FIA implement new technical directions to level the playing field? Max Verstappen has criticized Lewis Hamilton's idea that the FIA set a time frame for F1 teams to start working on their next year's car to prevent one team from gaining or maintaining a significant advantage. So far in 2023, Red Bull has gone undefeated, winning all 8 Grand Prix as well as the sprint. Verstappen leads the Drivers' Championship with 69 points over teammate Sergio Perez, with Aston Martin's Fernando Alonso trailing by 78 points. Hamilton is behind the Dutchman by 93 points. In the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull leads Hamilton's Mercedes team by 154 points. Mercedes has finished on the podium in the previous 2 races in Barcelona and Canada, and Hamilton believes they can catch Red Bull on track before the season ends, but only if the defending champions can shift their emphasis to their 2024 car, given their edge in 2023. Logically, Red Bull's grasp on the season will allow it to devote more attention to next year's car than if it were during a title challenge, something Aston Martin has previously claimed will be the greatest chance of a non-Red Bull triumph later this year. Hamilton, an integral part of the Mercedes team that has only won 1 Grand Prix since the new aerodynamic regulations were implemented at the start of 2022, has now proposed imposing a time restriction on when teams can begin building their next car. Hamilton would want to see a regulation implemented that prevents teams from switching to designing their next car too early in the season. The car, Mercedes W14, is moving in the right direction. I think ultimately it's likely that, bit by bit, by the end of the year we will probably catch Red Bull, but that's only because they're probably already focusing on next year's car because they're so far ahead, Hamilton told at the Austrian GP. They don't have to make any changes to this year's car anymore as they're so far ahead. He's cruising at 100 points ahead of us. I think the FIA should probably put a time when everyone is allowed to start developing on the next year's car. So August the 1st, that's when everybody can start, so then no one can get an advantage on the next year, because that sucks. It would make more sense. They should. Say, for example, you start the season and you know you have a bad car. You can just say, I'm not going to bother developing this car and put all this money into next year's car and have an advantage. Mercedes was the previous team to beat in F1, winning 8 straight world championships from 2014 to 2021. And Hamilton feels such a regulation reform would help prevent the sport from experiencing protracted periods of dominance by one team, as it has in the past. When pushed on Mercedes' previous ability to do what Red Bull now can, Hamilton replied, "We never started as early as them. That's why I'm saying it needs to change. Because that's why you have dominance for so long, and they keep allowing it to happen. Ferrari was ahead and the same thing happened there. When Red Bull were ahead with Seb, Vettel, back in the day, they start earlier so they're always ahead." Elaborating on his proposal, Hamilton said, "I was really fortunate to have one of those periods. Max is having it now, but with the way it's going, it will continue to happen over and over again, and I don't think we need that in the sport. If everyone had a cut-off time, then no one has a head start, and it's a real race in that short space of time for the future car. Maybe that would help everyone be more on a level the following year." I might be wrong, but something has got to change. It would be cool to see in the next 20 years that we don't have huge bands of time where one team lead too far ahead, because we want to see better racing. Later at the FIA news conference, Sky Sports F1 questioned championship leader Verstappen about Hamilton's comments, and Verstappen seemed unimpressed. Life is unfair as well, so it's not only in Formula 1, Verstappen said. A lot of things in life are unfair, so we just have to deal with it. Verstappen added, "We weren't talking about that when Lewis was winning his championships, right? So I don't think we should now. That's how Formula 1 works. When you have a competitive car, it's great. But at one point, of course, you also have to look ahead to the next year. It's normal people behind us say these kinds of things, but they should also not forget when they were winning how it was looking. And if people would comment this kind of thing, then probably they would comment a bit different. But that's how it goes in Formula One. With Red Bull already holding a championship lead and being able to shift work to their 2024 car so early in the season, it raises concerns about the impact of the aero testing punishment they earned for exceeding the cost cap during the 2021 season. Red Bull was awarded an additional 10% reduction in aero testing time on top of their Constructors' Championship handicap, which runs through October of this year. Hamilton believes the penalty had little effect on Red Bull's performance, adding, "I don't think the penalty cost them anyway. The penalty didn't cost them anything. It definitely didn't. It was so small." Red Bull's technical director, Pierre Vacher, outlined at the Canadian Grand Prix when the team will feel the impact of the punishment. Vacher said, "Every time when you have a restriction, it affects you. We have a restriction because we were winning the championship last year, and we are still leading. Is the 10% further reduction affecting us in the number of runs we are doing? We do less tests, less development, but we have to be even more efficient in the way we work. For sure it will affect the performance of the end-of-the-year car and next year." The positive of it is that it is maybe developing even better processes in the system and motivation in the team. When the system is against you, it's interesting to see that it affects you in some good ways. I try to see the positives of it, but it's clear it's affecting us. What do you think? Could a new rule like this help even out the field? Or is it too limiting on the teams? After all, lower-placed teams could focus earlier on their next car to be on top when the season starts, just like Aston Martin did last year. But maybe it is a good idea. It also helps the team to stay within the budget cap after all, which should be every team's number one priority to avoid getting penalized. And to avoid the repetition of Red Bull in 2022, Toto Wolff has urged for Formula One's cost cap audits procedure to be finished very early. During the Singapore Grand Prix weekend in October, speculation circulated that at least one team had over the cost cap. However, Red Bull CEO Christian Horner denied this was their squad. Red Bull was later found to have over the 2021 limit by $1.8 million. However, this sum was lowered to $400,000 following a tax dispute with His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC, the UK entity in charge of the taxes system. The dispute concluded in late October when Red Bull was given a punishment for the excess and deduction in wind tunnel and CFD time. But Wolff wants the process to be accelerated in 2023 to avoid a repetition. "I think everybody is keen to have the results of the audits and potential consequences very early on in the season," Wolff told media. It is FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem and Stefano Domenicali, F1 CEO. "It is all the teams because we don't want to have a drag until October to find out that somebody has breached the cap for the previous season." Then what does that mean for penalties? When would it take effect? Because if those penalties come into place very late in the season, you're actually taking the amount you do the next season. So we are all keen, all the stakeholders are keen to have the audits as quickly as possible. We must bear in mind that obviously Federico Lodi, head of FIA financial regulations, and the FIA have limited resources, limited manpower, and they're doing their best. Will one of the teams have gone over budget last year? Some teams went big on their development, so it could be possible. What do you think? Mercedes could be one of the teams that could break the budget cap with the amount of upgrades they have introduced, but we haven't seen the last of them yet. Hamilton has not won a race since the penultimate round of the 2021 season at the Saudi Arabian GP, and last season was the first time in his F1 career that he did not win. So to change this, Mercedes will introduce another larger improvement during next weekend's British Grand Prix, and there will be further tweaks before the August summer break. While Hamilton believes Mercedes' minor advances will put him in a position to fight for victories as the season progresses, he wants the Silver Arrows to focus on providing a title-contending car in 2024. "I'm trying to win a race. I really have no idea. It depends where the car goes. I think we'll hopefully get close, but I can't predict what Aston are going to do, what Ferrari are going to do, where Red Bull will be. I hope so, can win a race this year, but I also hope we don't focus too much on winning a race this year. I care less to win a race this year and more to win the championship next year." Will we see Lewis Hamilton on the top step of a race this season? And what about the little digs between the drivers? Will we ever see big rule change like a set date for the development of a car? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.